Hello friends, I received a really important inquiry following episode 64 in which I talked about applying the first audience question when reading the Bible. In that episode, I used the statement of Jesus from his Olivet Discourse to illustrate the importance of understanding audience. It's recorded in Matthew 24. This generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. A viewer asked if it was correct that the Lord's coming spoken of by Jesus in Matthew 24 was actually fulfilled in the lifetime of that generation, or was he speaking about his second coming that is yet to happen, or a bit of both? I replied privately, then thought that I should do this quick post about it. Of initial importance is that we maintain the credibility of Jesus' words. What I mean is that if Jesus said this generation, that's what he meant. And if he said all these things, he meant that too. We've got to stay true to the text and believe there's nothing tricky going on here with Jesus. Secondly, let's keep in mind we do have accounts in the New Testament of a predicted return of Christ in what we call the end times. It's a coming that is associated with graves being opened and the dead being raised, a great hope expounded in the Bible. Therefore, what we have in Matthew 24 has to be something other than that, if it's one of the all things to be witnessed by that generation. Jesus' first audience. It has to be something other than the return, the future return of Christ, if we are to maintain Jesus' credibility. Thirdly, we've got to think about what's really going to happen when the temple is destroyed so that not one stone is left upon another. What's going to happen is massive slaughter by the Romans. Over 1 million souls are going to die. And the Romans are not going to distinguish between Christians and the pagans, the innocent and those guilty of insurrection against the occupation of their land. Dear friends, Christ's bride is there in Jerusalem. Men and women, boys and girls who have embraced the grace of God and followed the Prince of Peace. That Jesus cares deeply for them and what might happen to them is evidenced in the detailed advanced instructions he gives them about fleeing the city, besieged and surrounded by the Roman army 40 years earlier. But how do you do that? Anyone caught trying to escape ended up being crucified on one of the hundreds of crosses the Romans had installed around the city. So Jesus comes. Just like he came and opened up the Red Sea for the Israelites seeking to flee from Egypt. Just like he became the fourth man in the fire as he rescued the 3 Hebrews in the book of Daniel. Just like he came for Peter and later for Paul and Silas, who were in chains inside heavily guarded Roman prisons and by miraculous means made a way of escape for them. This, my friends, is the nature of Christ's coming in AD 70. It's to rescue his fledgling New Covenant bride from certain death in the city where once the Spirit of God had filled them, where they had formed communities of love and grace and faithfully followed the teaching of the apostles. This is not the future return of Christ. However, it's extremely important to the young church in Judea. It also stands out as pivotally important in the advance of Christ's kingdom on earth. By the means of the Roman action against the Jews, God has seized the opportunity to snuff out the remains of the Mosaic covenant that was rendered obsolete by the cross of Jesus Christ, whilst at the same time releasing his new covenant people from their persecutors to proclaim the gospel to the 4 corners of the earth. And so to accomplish his own sovereign objectives, all the tribes of the land see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with great power, and glory. Several Jewish, Greek, and Roman historians describe how a tremendous figure of unknown beauty was seen on the clouds of heaven, along with the armies of angels. They also wrote of the miraculous opportunities by which the Christians were able to escape the city, and tell us that not one of them perished. In a day or two, I'll post some of that in the Letters from Paradise Tumblr pages. So there is no double meaning in what Jesus said in the Olivet Discourse about his coming. This is not the end-time resurrection of the dead, but it is Christ coming to Jerusalem during these horrendous days of its utter destruction for the sake of his young church and the advance of his kingdom. I hope this helps.